Hi, this is Group 10's presentation on predicting baseball attendance. I'm Michael, and joining me will be Jerry, Harsh, and Leonza.
So our problem statement is what factors have the greatest influence on determining Major League Baseball attendance, and how can these factors be used to increase attendance in the future? Before we dive deeper into our project, I believe it is important to know why we as a group are interested in this topic. We all have a genuine interest in baseball. We watch and argue about it when we are together, and in fact, our group member Lienza has even worked at Red Sox for one of her co-ops. And Michael would probably agree Yankees is a better team. And we are certain our passion for the sport would motivate us to do some quality research and analysis. As enthusiastic baseball fans, we have read in multiple instances where baseball attendance has been on the decline for the past few years. As much as this news has made us feel sad, we really want to know the factors with greatest influence on Major League Baseball attendance, as well as how we can potentially leverage these factors to improve attendance in the future. And luckily, in our initial research, we found abundant data on this topic, such as ticket sales and weather data, on publicly accessible websites. In addition, we found research on related topics where winning percentage had the highest positive correlation to attendance. And it will be interesting to see if our analysis outputs something similar. These research also narrowed the scope of our project and provided insight into what we could do, including the range of dependent variables as well as methods and tools we can utilize in our analysis. And now, please welcome Harsh to give us an overview of our dataset.
The primary data set that we used in our analysis is the game summary and the attendance data from Baseball Reference. Baseball Reference is a well-known and reputable source of MLB statistics that dates from the beginning of the league to the present day. The various variables that were a part of this data set are attendance, stadium capacity, game number, day of week, day-night, doubleheader, rescheduled, win-loss ratio, division rank, games back, home team, visitor team, and innings. We also gather data from other sources about the average ticket price, the MVP winner, Cy Young winner, jersey sales, World Series winner, promotions, and temperature. A lot of this part of gathering the data was manual because the data was either not readily downloadable or readily available to us. For example, for promotions, we had to individually input the data into our Excel file, and that is the reason being why we did this only for two teams. Firstly, because it was time consuming, and secondly, the data was not readily available on the web to us. Once we did that, we spent time manipulating and cleaning our data in Excel. So after doing that, the biggest task that we had was combining the various data sets into one Excel file, and this was hard because we had to make sure that we were combining the data with the right year, right season, and the right team. To do this, we used filters in Excel, created various formulas. When we also created an ID, which combined the name of the team, the year of the season, and the date of the game, which was used to VLOOKUP data from other Excel files. We also created a few calculated values, such as person capacity, cumulative wins, and home opener. Person capacity is basically the attendance divided by stadium capacity. Cumulative wins is just accumulation of the wins for each team. Home openers if the first game of the season for a team was at their home stadium. We also created dummy variables for variables that were either in strings or categorical. For example, day of week was converted into 6 different dummy variables into binary values. And we did that for all the other variables that we thought was necessary so that it makes it easier for us to run our analysis in Python.
Because our variable that we were trying to predict, attendance, is a continuous quantitative variable, we decided to run linear regression. Now, the data that we used came from several different sources and didn't all cover the same periods of time. So we had some data that went back to 2000, other data that went back to 2009, and some data that was just for a few teams that only went back to 2015. So because of this, we created 3 different regression models to incorporate all of this data. The first model we ran contained a majority of the attendance data, and was from the years 2000 to 2019. Now, Model 2 contained all the same variables as Model 1, except it only went back to 2009 and also contained temperature data and data about the average ticket prices for every game. Model 3, however, contained variables for jersey sales and if promotions were run for specific games. Now, this data was really hard to find and it took a long time, so we only collected this data for two teams, Boston and Miami, and it only went back to 2015. Now, as you can see, the third model that has all of the variables from models 1 and 2, plus the jersey sales and promotions data, resulted in a better adjusted R squared than the first two models. Now, because of this, we wanted to look into to see if it was because of the seasons contained, so if the adjusted R squared improved because we got rid of some of the old attendance data and old data that maybe wasn't as relevant to the current trends. So because of that, we reran all of the models, but only using data from 2015 through 2019. Now, as you can see from the last slide, the adjusted R squares for all of the models improved. Now, we decided to focus on Model 2, even though that Model 3 was better, because it contained data for all of the teams instead of just for Miami or Boston. Now, because we chose this slide, we looked at it closer into our analysis and in our Tableau visualizations. Now, as you can see in this visualization, we plotted average attendance versus average predicted attendance, and you kind of can see what the slope of our line would be in our model. Of course, this is just using the averages, so it doesn't show all of the variation that was in our model, but because we had so many entries, it was really hard to visualize using every single data point, so we used the averages. And as you can see, some teams have a lot higher attendance than others, which makes some of the variation in our model. Because we have so many variables within our equation, we didn't think that it would make sense to write out our equation that way. Instead, we wanted to show you, using this visualization, which coefficients and variables had the largest impact to determine the attendance according to our model. As you can see, the top variables here are all the home and opponent teams. So those two factors, who the home team is and who the visiting team is, have the largest impact on the overall attendance of that game, according to our model. Now, other somewhat high positive coefficients for variables in our model include if the game is a home opener, the team's win-loss ratio, and if the team or individual players on the team had won individual awards. Now, another interesting variable to look at is the day of the week that the game is played. If the game is played on a Saturday, this positively impacts the attendance, but if the game is played on a Monday through Thursday weekday, this negatively impacts the attendance for that game, and they have negative coefficients. Now, Michael is going to walk you through the recommendations that we have based on our analysis.
Thank you, Leonza. As previously mentioned, our model performs best when using less years of data, indicating that baseball teams should use recent data and trends to improve attendance. Streaming is a new phenomenon, and baseball was much more popular in the past, so their effects are not captured in old data. Weather had an impact on attendance, but it was small. This makes sense because a large percentage of tickets are purchased before weather is forecasted. Our model is also better at predicting attendance for individual teams. Variables that were previously insignificant when predicting attendance for all 30 teams, like the home NL MVP winner, the home World Series winner, and the home jersey sales variables, were all significant in the third model, which only predicted attendance for the Marlins and Red Sox. Most people would assume that attendance would decrease with an increase in ticket price, but, interestingly enough, the higher the ticket price, the higher the average attendance. The third model improved tremendously when we added the promotions variable. so teams should focus on increasing promotional giveaways for games that are projected to have lower attendance, such as midweek games, and marketing them so fans are aware. As you can see below, attendance is higher on average for games that had a promotional giveaway, and attendance during the week is lower. The most influential factors in predicting attendance are the home and away teams. This is represented in the dashboard below. Attendance is highest for popular teams like the Yankees, Dodgers, and Red Sox, regardless if they are the home or away team, meaning popular teams draw crowds no matter what stadium they are playing in. Looking at the time series plots for the Marlins and Red Sox below, you can see that the Red Sox had consistent attendance since 2014, while the Marlins wavered. Additionally, the Red Sox attendance appears to be the most consistent during the summer, while the Marlins were inconsistent throughout the entire season. This means that building a brand is very important for having high, consistent levels of attendance. This is demonstrated by the Marlins' 2012 season, which you can see below, when they moved to Miami and did a rebranding by changing the logo and team name to represent Miami instead of Florida. This had an even larger impact than when they won the World Series in the early 2000s, showing that whether the home or opponent team has a well-known brand is very important in increasing attendance and predicting attendance. Additionally, even when the Red Sox had off years, due to their popularity and brand name, their attendance stayed consistently high. Teams should therefore heavily market games against more popular teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox. As seen again below, weekdays have the lowest average attendance, so as popular teams draw large crowds, teams should try to schedule those games during the week. If we had more time, we would like to rerun our third model again, including the promotional data for all 30 teams rather than just 2. This would help us prove whether promotional data is really that important, and whether its impact on predicting attendance could help the model's performance when predicting 30 teams at once. We believe this model could be used to predict similar dependent variables, such as % of stadium capacity filled at every game. This would let teams know how exactly many seats will be left empty for future games, allowing them to efficiently allocate resources and time into marketing tickets. Additionally, while it would require different data, the skeleton of this model can be applied to other sports. For example, our discovery that recent data is more valuable than historical data when predicting attendance is very important in improving attendance for all sports. This means that teams should focus on current trends instead of what previously worked, because those old tactics will not be successful again in the future. Thank you for your time, and you may direct any of your questions to anyone on our team.